welcome to CareSmarts 360 on air, a home care podcast. I am Dennis Gill, Senior Sales Consultant at CareSmarts. So, buckle up today as we embark on Mike Doughty's wild ride. He is the Executive Director at Zeabe Home Care Healthcare Agency, and his story is anything but ordinary. Imagine taking over a company your father founded just a year ago, tripling its size in 15 months without any industry background, to watch revenues plunge by 64.5%. Nothing humbles you like a sales graph sliding backwards. So most home care owners feel stuck, dazed by change, running in circles, questioned old tactics. Mike was there too, until he realized that being an outsider was his greatest advantage. So with 14 years of digital marketing and franchising experience, he built a playbook based on three pillars: strategizing, delivering, and optimizing. So Mike shares how losing 64.5% reset his approach, transforming crisis into clarity. Stay tuned today for insights on defining your prime axis, strengthening your core engine, and scaling with leverage, not exhaustion. If you're a home care owner obsessed with efficiency, this episode is your roadmap to sustainable growth. So, welcome to the podcast, Mike.
Thanks, Dennis. Great to be here.
Great, great, great. So we are really thankful to you took out the time from your busy schedule for our listeners today, and I hope this session would be a great beneficial thing for our listeners, and they learn from you the best things what you have done with your agency and whatever your experience has been. Okay. All right, so let's jump on straight away to our first question. So, Mike, what was the first insight you gained when you saw a revenue drop of 65.5%, and how did it reshape your priorities? I'm also eager to know about that.
Yeah, thanks, Dennis. Yeah, as you say, there's nothing so quite so humbling as seeing sort of your sales graph sort of just slowly begin to reverse after such quick growth.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so when we saw that happening, and I sort of was reflecting around sort of what we needed to do, I came up with, I guess, what was my three C's, and so and I sort of relate this just initially to my digital marketing experience, where we would have someone come to us and they would want to sort of improve their marketing funnel.
Mm-hmm.
And as we often sort of hear today, there's three parts to marketing funnel. There's the top of the funnel. You know,
Yeah.
when a person visits your site, there's the middle of the funnel, and then there's the bottom of the funnel. And the mistake that most people make in digital marketing is that they want to start improving the top of the funnel. And
Yeah.
my experience was we needed to start at the bottom of the funnel because that's the closest place to a sale.
Mm-hmm.
So when we had that issue, I sort of took that approach and looked at it and went, okay, I want to make sure that the plug for my bath is not sitting on the bench and it's
Mm-hmm.
in the bath while I've got the taps on. So my three C's were the bottom of the funnel approach was cash flow. So I need to
Okay.
make sure that whatever we've done to be able to submit a claim,
Mm-hmm.
I'm able to collect that money. Uh, One, make sure I can collect it, and two, make sure I can collect it quickly. So, we really looked at, how we were filing our claims, what we could do to ensure that those claims were filed cleanly and that we
Mm-hmm.
were getting the cash flow from what we'd already sort of done all the work for. And so, I want to say that again still wasn't perfect, but we looked at outsourcing, to people locally that would do it based on performance. That sort of didn't work. And I really ended up sort of going, okay, again, having no experience, let me do the billing. So let
Okay.
me at least understand the process so that I can ensure that whoever I get in to do it is doing it sort of correctly. So I'm a great believer you lean on your talents or your strengths, and I'm definitely one that has the learning gene.
Got
So
it.
I jumped in, learnt the billing, and then I actually outsourced that to someone overseas very cost effectively,
Okay.
and we also changed our operational system. So We were using another software application at the time that wasn't very so it didn't feel very user friendly, wouldn't play with other apps in the sandpit. So we
Okay.
changed over our um, home care operational system,
Okay.
and yeah, and then started to make sure we were getting the cash flow coming in. We were just doing lots of things manually.
Uh-huh.
We were doing billing slowly, doing billing manually, punching the individual claims that were generated into the portal manually. Just was just all inefficient. So we really operationalized and made that a lot more efficient.
Okay.
The second one, going back up, if you like, from the bottom, was then okay, capacity.
Mm-hmm.
We need to get caregivers on, but what have we got, at the moment in terms of capacity with our caregivers? And I sort of remember things like, when they used to sort of say how much, oil and gas reserves the US had to understand how much, fuel and capacity. And then,
Mm-hmm.
then they came along with electronic injection carburetors, and all of a sudden, the stock didn't change, but the technology allowed us to sort of, double the reserve effectively because we could do it more efficiently. So
Got
I
it.
looked at that, and drew on analogies like when I had a sales team, we would structure our salespeople to start at a certain time to maximize the number of appointments they could do through the day. So
Mm-hmm.
we took that approach with scheduling and went, okay, what's the best way to make our capacity sort of the maximum that we can have based on ways that we can influence. So rather than, and we're mostly Medicaid and VA, we're not a lot of private pay.
Okay.
Not that it makes much difference, but so we went back and went, okay, the caregiver needs to be able to work 2 shifts in a day.
Mm-hmm.
So rather than letting the client dictate when the caregiver starts at 10 a.m., so they finish, at 2 p.m., doing a 4 hour shift, and we only just have 4 hours that we can provide,
Mm-hmm.
let's now set a standard where, firstly, the shifts start at 9, finish at 1. The caregiver can then do a shift from 2 till 6, or maybe
Okay.
2 till 4. And so we then just went back to the clients and started to reorganize our scheduling, and that increased our capacity by one and a half, well, by 50%.
Oh,
So
great.
no more caregivers just by reorganizing. When we started, we could optimize what we had available,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and then and so we then set about also measuring that on a weekly basis. So what percentage of our clients are actually on that set scheduled format
Okay.
of all of our hours. And so we had that in the team meeting each week as one of the
Mm-hmm.
items on the dashboard. And lo and behold, we started at mushable, I want to say somewhere around sort of 25 to 30%. And, we got it up to about 70%.
Oh,
So that again helped with the capacity. Um,
okay.
then still in capacity, we then went, okay, how many hours are the caregivers sort of working per week? And it
Mm-hmm.
was it was all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
So we went, okay, again, set a standard. Let's make it 20 hours minimum per week from the caregivers. That's the standard that we're going to now communicate with them. And we went about, again, sort of measuring what percentage of our caregivers each week are working 20 hours or more. And same
Okay.
thing, the metric at the beginning was low, and we started focusing on it. And lo and behold, what you measure, you can manage, and what you can manage gets done. That
Yeah.
metric started to increase. And again, we started now to get sort of more hours from our existing caregivers, so
Mm-hmm.
we could go out and obviously get more clients, because often with certainly Medicaid and VA, getting the clients isn't so much the constraint, it's the caregivers, it's having the service as we know.
Got
So
it.
that was the second C around capacity. How do I increase the capacity? And then sort of thirdly, if you like, again, this one is more at the top of the funnel, was what's the conversion process with the resource that we need, which was caregivers, and it's the recruitment. So we
Okay.
then started to look at what are we doing? How can we, one, convert better what we currently have coming in. And so we set about, just automating, the message reminders, just doing things differently, making it easy for the applicants, shortening down our employment application, making it electronic, trying to get them to do that before they come in, so they weren't coming in and spending a lot of time,
Hmm.
making our sort of orientation process, online through video and a digital quiz. Again, just trying to make that recruitment process quicker and easier for the caregiver, because they're the ones that were sort of important. And then working on sort of lead generation. So those were just really the things that we focused on in terms of the conversion of the recruitment process, knowing our
Yeah.
numbers. We focused on how many meet and greets are we doing. We need to
Okay.
do 10 meet and greets, in person with caregivers per week. That would be 40 over a month. We get 25% end up making it all the way through and, doing their first shifts. So that's 10 new caregivers per month. On average, they work 25 hours. That's
Okay.
250 hours per
Yep.
week
250 hours
per
per week.
month
Yeah.
that we're adding. So it was just focusing on the metrics that were going to have the biggest impact on improving things. And so, and just putting again, um, that's the strategy, and then just putting in place, the projects and the tasks around doing, things in those areas, and seeing, what works, what doesn't. And
Hmm.
sometimes knowing what doesn't work is just as important as knowing what does.
Like
So
what does? Yeah. I get that. I get that. So these are the three metrics that became non-negotiable for you.
yeah, yeah, yeah. We measured the time from claim to payment. We started
Hmm.
measuring that structured scheduling percentage, the number of hours that the caregivers were working, and then what was our activity and our conversions in that recruitment process.
Okay.
Those were
So
really,
everything gained
yeah.
step by step. So these are the three metrics. Obviously, listeners can take a note of it. And how did you refocus your core operating engine to regain stability without sacrificing margin?
Yeah, and that's a really interesting question. So when I looked at, you know, I I look at sort of our general sort of model of what we're trying to do is, um, we all need to have, I guess, a plan. We
Hmm.
need to have predictability in terms of what we're doing, and we also need to have progress. And for me, of those three things, the operational part falls under that predictability category. And
Okay.
so within in that, we had three things we need to focus on. Say one is, how do we install that um, operating engine system into the business?
Hmm.
How do we ensure that we have affordable support for the business? So we
Okay.
need support. We need the sort of office team and the back office support. But how do we do that? What's really important, in an affordable way? And with the advent of outsourcing, there's some things there that I'll come back and talk about. So that was key, the affordable support. And then thirdly, it was around the quality assurance, because in
Okay.
most businesses we have what I look at as three sort of layers of systems. We have the this is how we do it here. We
Hmm.
have the this is how we train. This is how we do it here. And then we have the third level, which is, this is how we manage. This is how we train. This is how we do it here. And this is how we manage. This is how we do it here. So that
Okay.
quality assurance process is really important. We are, say, being Medicaid, in a pretty highly regulated state, Delaware, in comparison to others. So the quality assurance was really important. So we uh, we started to look at, I guess, predominantly using sort of the outsource as a way to cure the affordable support. So we did a couple of things. One was, one of the pain points with the team in general was the on call. Like most
Okay.
companies, we were having the office team do
Hmm.
the on call sort of during the week after hours, and they'd take turns, and then during the weekend as well. And so we went, how can we, one, alleviate that sort of issue? And when I first started, like the office team, some of them were not only doing on call, but if there was a call out, they were going out as well. Which,
Okay.
from an outside perspective, coming in, I just that's crazy. Why is my office person going out, even if
Yeah.
they are sort of HHA and providing service?
Uh,
Uh, so we set up and created a an on-call team that operated remotely, based out of the Philippines,
okay.
um, and looked at other ways, with the billing and payroll. We outsourced that. So we ended up with a team of about sort of between 6 and 8 people offshore that were supporting the business.
Oh, okay.
And because of that, I could, I we ended up must be stripping out about 300,000 in sort of annual, expense from the
Okay.
business
All right.
by being able
For
to
outsourcing.
outsourcing. And
Okay.
you know, um, one of the things that I wanted to, why people say, why did you set up your own sort of on-call team?
Mm-hmm.
Well, because one was a quality perspective, we could control the quality, but secondly, when they're on call, they aren't busy all the time. They're not taking
Mm-hmm.
calls, for the full shift. So I could access their downtime to
Yeah.
then get them to do things in that quality assurance sort of part, if you like, or category that I know and I sort of knew that I needed to make sure that we had good service. So I wanted to make sure they were checking the shifts, for the previous day to make sure that compliance things were dealt with. That we got them to look at the shift schedule 2 weeks out, just as a second pair of eyes,
Mm-hmm.
in addition to the staffing coordinator, to see if anything was missing, were the frequencies wrong. Just again, looking for those small little 1% gains. People say, it's not about being 1,000% better, but
Yep.
being sort of 1% better 1,000 times. So we were just looking for those small little 1%ers where we weren't losing hours. We weren't not spotting an increase in hours. We weren't, and they could maybe contact a caregiver outside of hours at a reasonable time where we could get hold of them and get them to pick up shifts. So
Okay.
those were some of the things that we sort of looked at from that operating engine, as well as recruitment. So we then really looked at the recruitment side, looked at what can we do to improve that. Um, you know, uh, yeah, to me, there's two really sort of key roles that influence sort of revenue. One is obviously staffing, and two is recruitment.
Okay.
For private pay and other businesses, obviously sales is in there as well.
Yeah.
So, we really looked at those two. We have tried, offshore recruitment. We got two recruiters on board, must be for the price of one locally. We tried that. Didn't really work that well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we have brought people on locally and then provided them with support. We've found that to be, really effective. So,
Okay.
again, just back to the numbers, back to what do we do to grow the sort of caregivers that we need to provide the service.
Okay. Yeah, it is good to learn. And just continuing with this thing, that what partnerships did you lean on to rebuild cash flow efficiently? One, you said that outsourcing was one thing. What support system you did with outsourcing? Any other
Yeah,
partnerships did you lean on?
yeah, I guess say being Medicaid, we were at the time mostly Medicaid, and we
Okay.
had been credentialed for the VA as well. But it might have been the VA might have been less than 5% of our hours per week. It was small.
Okay.
So we, through the process of like say looking at cash flow and looking at how do we maximize our gross profit, we saw and began to recognise that the VA had increased their reimbursement rates,
Mm-hmm.
and now they were actually on par with what you might get as a private pay client, and certainly $5 more than what we're getting reimbursement wise from our other payer sources in terms of the MCOs. So
Okay.
we went, oh, let's start focusing on, the relationship that we have with the VA to see if we can grow the number of clients that we're getting from them, because that $5 in extra gross profit, if you're making $10 normally,
Yeah.
that's 15, or that's a 50% increase in your
50%.
GP,
Yeah,
you know,
50%.
and over a number of hours, that begins to make, quite a lot of difference.
It does. It does.
So,
Yeah.
so we really focused, and I know at the beginning it was hard. Like, we were calling them and contacting the case managers, and we were getting, nowhere. Then we got like, one client, and then, we then after a while got two, and then we sort of started to develop that relationship. So we really sort of leaned into, developing the relationships more with the VA
Okay.
case managers, because we knew that growing those hours would make a big difference. And we grew that from like less than 5% to sort of what's over 30%
Okay.
now. And the GP, the gross profit on those hours now, I mean, then it was like about 1.5 times a normal hour from another sort of pay source. Well, now it's two. So
All right.
every hour that we get from the VA effectively counts as two in comparison if you're comparing apples to apples. So, that's been again significant in terms of increasing our margin while doing effectively less hours.
Okay.
And you
Got it.
add on, you've stripped out the costs, from by utilizing affordable support. It all begins to, you know, filter down to the bottom line. All of a sudden, you're making more net profit than you were sort of doing sort of 50% more hours.
Definitely, it does. It does. And finally, Mike, looking back, what one question would you ask every home care owner facing a similar revenue plunge?
Um, do they know, I guess, their numbers and like that continuum in home care? So, we have two channels, if you like, that come in from sales for clients, from prospects to clients. We have the other channel that comes in for applicants to caregivers,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot of sort of numbers along, that segment of each of those channels.
Uh-huh.
And then it sort of goes into your operational system, in terms of, things like, um, percentage of the hours that you are filling. So there's numbers in the operational part, and then there's sort of numbers related to uh, billing and collecting and getting that cash into your bank. And do you know all of the little numbers that sort of go through those two channels into the one that end up popping out into the next, being cash flow? And if you do, then where are the bottlenecks? Um, where is the indicator that if you sort of pull that lever, tweak that number, it's going to give you like an outsized result for the energy that you put into it? So my question would be, sort of, do you know your numbers? Do you know how those sort of flow through the continuum of your business, and do you know where your blockages are? And we'll have blockages because we're never where we want to be. We're
Mm-hmm.
always, sort of wanting to be sort of more in some way. So there's
Yeah.
always one thing that's not working, maybe like, a whole lot. But so starting in the area where you go, okay, some energy into this one area is going to give me, a greater, ROI on my time or energy or resource than something else. And so you can constantly be looking and focusing on those and working on them, and trying to get them done.
So, home care owners, you have your question and you need to get an answer to this. So, Mike did put a very right question for you. Please make a note of that. And thank you, really, Mike. Thank you for your expertise today. It was a really valuable session for all the home care owners who are tuning in. And I hope they learn from this. If their business is not up to the mark at the time, they learn from the experience that you have shared with them. Thank you. It was lovely talking to you.
Right.
And to our no problem. And to our audience, thank you for tuning in. And until next time, I'm Dennis Gill signing off. Cheers, guys.
Thanks.